Welcome to the Southland Regional Association of Realtors and ChrisNet MLS new member orientation. This orientation will have two parts. Part one is going to focus primarily on your ChrisNet MLS membership benefits and the various resources we offer to help you. Part two will go over the new Clear Cooperation policy that has been mandated by the National Association of Realtors. This section will allow you to take a deeper look at the new MLS rules and updates. At the end of each section, you will be asked to answer 3 simple questions. Once you have completed all parts of this orientation, you will receive your credit for attending the orientation. And before we continue, thank you so much for choosing Southland Regional and ChrisNet MLS as your service providers. The first area that we're going to talk about in your MLS benefits is technology tools and the training that is provided for it. So, what is our primary focus? Well, our primary focus is making sure that you know the tools that are available to you to assure your success in your business ventures. We offer various presentations and classes, not only at the ChrisNet Association offices, but also now on Zoom and in your office, free. And by the way, anytime you ask us to come to your office to do a presentation, we will customize it to the individual needs of your office. You can find out about our classes by going to srar.com. We have flyers we post on Facebook, and we send out a bi-weekly SRAR email newsletter that goes ahead and gives you a briefing of everything that's going on at the association. What are some of the tools that we actually offer for you? Well, obviously, the first one is your ChrisNet MLS database. This is one of the most powerful databases in the state, and it is powered by Matrix. We also have chrisnetmobile.com, which allows you to access the Matrix platform by going from your mobile device. Because we have partnered with W&R Studios, you have available to you the Cloud Agent Suite, which is composed of Cloud CMA, Cloud Streams, and Cloud MLX. The Cloud CMA actually provides you with beautiful CMA reports, property reports, buyer reports, flyers, and there's actually a leads platform within Cloud CMA. Cloud Streams allows you to create a drip campaign to your clients. And Cloud MLX offers you an easier way to actually search the MLS. Cloud MLX is connected to ChrisNet MLS, and all of the information is the same. It's just a different way to search. Not only do we offer you the ChrisNet MLS Matrix platform, but Cloud MLX as an alternative. Realist 2.0 tax data. This is another one of your benefits that allows you to review property profile information. But what many people don't know is within that platform, you also have the ability to create CMA reports that would include not only MLS provided information, but also sales information on listings that were not entered into the MLS. You actually have a label program within that platform that will allow you to actually create your own farming program. Realtors Property Resource, or RPR. This is a very dynamic and powerful platform that is from the National Association of Realtors. It is a parcel-centric program, and like the Realist 2.0 tax data, it supplies you with property profile information, and not just in the state of California, but national. You also have the ability to search commercial information within the RPR platform. ZipForm and Digital Ink. These are two platforms that are offered by the California Association of Realtors as a benefit for being a California Association of Realtors member. Your ZipForm program allows you to create templates. All of your contract forms are in the ZipForm platform, and the electronic signature program, which is free, is Digital Ink. We offer two of the most dynamic apps in the industry, CRMLS and MLS Touch, and I'll go over those in just a second. Everything that I've gone over right now, we offer classes on. It's important that you utilize those resources. So let's go on now to the apps. There are two apps that I would recommend that you do install on your mobile device. The first app, whose icon would be on the left of your screen, is the CRMLS app. The second app, whose icon is appearing on the right, is MLS Touch. To install either one of these products, please go to the App Store or Google Play. I do recommend that you do go ahead and install both apps just to see which one works best for you. Everyone has a different way of doing business, a different way of branding, and a different type of client base that may enjoy the ease of MLS Touch, or they may like the looks of the CRMLS app. So I would recommend that you install both just to see which one works best for you. Because remember, if you're comfortable with the product, your client will be comfortable with the product. So what types of classes do we offer? Well, we offer lectures, live Zoom, and we do provide evening classes. We have recently gone ahead and pre-recorded some very short videos that can be found by going to srar.com and on the left-hand side, clicking on Technical Support Videos. Those will give you a very quick overview and help to resolve any problems that you may have when you're working in the platform. All of our classes are free, and we do recommend that you do RSVP just in case the odd moment comes up and a class has to be canceled. So where do I sign up for all these wonderful classes? It's easy. Go to srar.com, click on the Events and Education tab, and you actually have two ways of finding what's going on in reference to any event or educational opportunity: by looking at the calendar or webinars and videos. You can register by clicking the link. I encourage you to go, if you have not already done so, to car.org. And when the screen opens up, clicking on the ZipForm bubble, you'll see that towards the left of the screen. Once you do that, it's going to open up to give you the option to either just go ahead and sign in if you are already a registered user, or to go ahead and register. And they've made it very easy. You will be prompted to enter information one screen at a time. And once you're done, you are in the platform. And we do offer regular classes on ZipForm and Digital Ink. Wow, a free member profile on Realtor.com. This is a wonderful benefit that a lot of realtors are not using. So how do you set up your Realtor.com profile? Simply go to Realtor.com, and when the screen opens up, you will go to the far right. You will click Sign Up. It's going to ask you who you are and you are going to click on that you are professionally signing up. Once you do that, it's going to go ahead and provide you with a video that's going to walk you through how to set up your profile to ensure success. It's easy to do. I recommend you do it immediately. On top of those benefits that I've highlighted, you also have a variety of other benefits. Those benefits are easy to find. Once you log into ChrisNet MLS, you will notice on the dashboard that there will be a series of icons. Looking at the screen I have up now, you can see that there's Realist, and there's our Cloud Agent Suite, including Cloud Streams, CMA, and Cloud MLX. I have the RPR icon. And what is this new home source? Did you know that you can search for new building communities and new developments? That's what New Home Source is all about. Take a look. You may have a client that's interested in moving to a new community. What's Proxio? Proxio is your international search engine. It also allows you to network with other agents internationally. You also have the ability to manually add listings to the Proxio platform. These are all things for you to consider and to take a look at, and they are free member benefits. If you're a broker, ChrisNet MLS has proudly partnered with ListHub. ListHub provides you with over 300 syndicated websites. To register for syndication, go to srar.com, click on MLS, and then on the left side of the screen, go ahead and select ListHub. The broker is in charge of where their listings go and what authority your agents have to either change or add other syndication partners. Take a look. There are instructional videos and information on how to set up your account. The next section that we're going to be going over is professional standards. Professional standards offers a lot of support and resolve for both our members and the public. So let's start with the two types of complaints that we address: ethics and arbitration. What's the difference, and how do I file a complaint? An ethics complaint is based on a violation of the National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics and/or MLS rules. There is no fee to file an ethics complaint. However, you must bear in mind that the statute of limitations is 180 days. The second type of complaint are the arbitrations complaints. These are strictly based on procuring cause or commission disputes or referral fees. The filing fee for this type of complaint is $500. Optional mediation is highly suggested to offer an opportunity to settle the dispute among the parties that are having control of the outcome. At a hearing, the panel will decide who the prevailing party is. And remember, the statute of limitations on an arbitrations complaint is 180 days from the closing of escrow. So, to reiterate, mediation is not mandatory, but we do strongly encourage you to try mediation before going to arbitration. please bear in mind that when you are filing any complaint, your complaint package must be accompanied by all copies of all supporting documents to substantiate your claim. So this could include emails, text messages, copies of your contracts, maybe a picture of the full agent report, any kind of timeline that you have, either audio or video submission, and all of this information needs to be submitted on a flash drive. So please make sure that you have all of the information that you need put together before you go in to any kind of complaint. What is the Ombudsman Program? Well, the Ombudsman Program is a highly suggested program to association members and or to the public to settle a dispute. This program provides an experienced professional standards committee member to assist the parties to open communication and to remedy the dispute prior to filing a formal complaint. It is an informal process, it is free, it is confidential, and the parties are contacted within 48 hours. This is another way to settle disputes, very easy. Public mediation is a paid service, and this service is available to members of the public to resolve a dispute arising from the sale or purchase of a property in accordance with the California Residential Purchase Agreement and Joint Escrow Instructions. There is a non-refundable administrative fee of $50 per each party. Once both parties agree to mediate, mediators are paid directly $400 per party for the first 3 hours. It is $150 per party after 3 hours. The good news is $100 is refunded to each side if the dispute is resolved within 2 hours or less. So this is another situation where it is imperative that all of your information is intact and that perhaps you have pursued other ways to resolve the conflict by using the Ombudsman Program perhaps. SRAR offers a professional standards webpage. So you're going to go to srar.com and you would go to the Dispute Complaint Center. In that area, there is a set of the professional standards rules, the National Association Code of Ethics, complaint packets, so either your ethics or arbitration, the paperwork that's required to move forward is there, your Ombudsman Program request forms, public mediation forms, guidelines for advertisement, and this is kind of important, procuring cause guidelines, disciplinary and arbitration guidelines, and there is a library of very short videos with an explanation of the articles of the Codes of Ethics and procuring cause. So there's a lot of information there for you to go in and check out and see what would work best for you. Take advantage of it. It's important. The National Association Code of Ethics does require that all agents do take the mandatory online National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics course. The code ensures that consumers are served best by requiring realtors to cooperate with each other in furthering the best needs and interests for their clients. Please be sure to complete the required online Code of Ethics course offered by the National Association of Realtors. Thank you. The final section of part 1 is going to be going over MLS and membership. Just a few things, but remember there's a lot more. We're giving you a basic overview and some insight as to what actually goes on at the association for our members. So there are actually two locations for the Southland Regional Association. They offer the same exact service. We work together. The main location is the San Fernando Valley office located on Balboa, and we have our satellite office in Santa Clarita Valley. I encourage you to go ahead and take a visit to either one. We look forward to meeting you. So, what is the question that we get asked most often? And I hate to go over the money in the very beginning, but let's just go ahead and get it over with. We actually mail out our association dues November 17th. You will be assessed a $50 fine after December 31st. So go ahead, save $50 and make sure that you get your association dues paid prior to December 31st. The other thing a lot of people really don't pay much attention to is the Realtor Action Fund box to check and make a contribution. MLS access dues. You may pay your dues in one of two ways. You can pay the entire amount in May, or you can divide your MLS annual dues into two payments. So you can pay one half in May and the other half in November. However, please bear in mind that if you choose to do it in two separate payments, there will be a small servicing fee to accommodate that. Brokers must file a severance form with SRAR when returning a licensee their license. So it is very, very important that a severance form is filled out when an agent leaves a brokerage. In order for a Realtor member to come back, they must file a reaffiliation form when accepting a licensee from another office. So the broker needs to make sure that they have filed a reaffiliation form for any new agents. This must be done within 7 working days. Many times, agents don't really know where to go to start a listing. There's actually two ways that you can enter a listing into the MLS. The first way is to take a listing management / ad edit class. We actually offer this class 3 times a month. We do this so that everyone has the ability to take this class. Once you have taken that class and your broker has signed your certificate and sent it back to the association, the ability for you to enter and edit your own listing will become available in the ChrisNet MLS Matrix platform. If you choose not to take that class, you can still submit listings to the MLS by emailing the completed listing form to the MLS service counter. The cost for having our MLS department do it for you is $50 a listing and additional fees for any edits. It is important that you do take the ad edit class and have your broker sign that certificate. There are actually 2 types of listings. There are mandatory listings for submission and non-mandatory listings for submission. So what would fall under a mandatory listing? Any residential property, including single-family residences or townhomes, residential income from 1 to 4 units, mobile homes, and land. These are mandatory listings, and they must be entered into the MLS. 1, if there is the public marketing of a listing, the property must be entered into the MLS within 1 business day of that marketing. 2, if there has been no public marketing, then you have 2 business days to enter your mandatory listing into the MLS. For a non-mandatory listing, that would include residential rental properties, business opportunities, commercial, and residential income, 5 or more units. There is no time restriction in entering a non-mandatory listing. You can find any of your MLS forms by going to srar.com and clicking on MLS forms. The first form that I want to go over with you is the exclude listing form. The exclude listing form must be sent to the association along with the first and the last page of your listing agreement. The exclude form must be signed by your client and by your broker. This can be found by going to srar.com, MLS forms, or by going into ZipForm. But remember, this form is required if you are excluding a listing from the MLS. The form is required, and the first and the last page of the listing contract. The cancellation form. A listing cancellation must be signed by the broker. Your client must sign it, and the broker must sign it. The cancellation form may be found by going to srar.com, the MLS tab, and again going into the MLS forms area. Hold or withdrawn. To put a listing on hold or to withdraw a listing, you must have your client's signature and again your broker's signature. Hold, do not show is an off-market property, as is withdrawn. It is an active contract, but it is no longer an on-market property. This form, again, can be found by going to srar.com and, again, going to MLS forms. So these have got to be signed by the client and by your broker. It must be done. What is the definition of a hold? Any property that's on hold is still a valid listing contract. However, because of a variety of reasons, the owner, and I'm emphasizing the word owner or seller, has requested that there temporarily be no showings. When you put a property on hold, it is not available for showings. It still will appear in the MLS in the status of hold, but you will not be allowed to show the property. For more information on the rules for placing a property in the hold status, please go to MLS Rule 9.3. Guess what? You sold a house. It is imperative that you do enter the information when you have sold a house. When you have changed the status from active to pending or active under contract, Any accepted offer must be reported or input into the MLS as pending or active under contract or sold within 2 business days. So it's the same as entering a listing. You have 2 business days to get that information into the MLS. If you have a short pay listing with multiple offers, we recommend that you put it into active under contract, bank approval or not. Compensation offered through the MLS. The selling office commission cannot be varied under these 3 circumstances. If it is sold by a certain date, if escrow has closed by a certain time, or if a certain party shows the listing for the first time. So once any of those events has taken place, the selling office commission cannot be varied. Public remarks is a very valuable tool on a listing. In fact, when I do the listing management class, I go ahead and I tell people that this is actually the area for bragging rights. But there's a lot of agents that abuse this particular area. Let me go over a few highlights. The public remarks area can only be used for the purpose of marketing the property. Be very careful about the kind of language that you use in public remarks, as there are restrictions and there are guidelines according to the Fair Housing. One of the guidelines that you need to be aware of is that maybe using a word like walking distance to the market could be against fair housing guidelines. So maybe you would want to enter a remark with the same meaning to something like nearby or close to. In the public remarks, you may not include any names for owners, for agents, the company you work for, no phone numbers, no websites, no emails, none of it, no compensation information. And please, whatever you do, do not include gate codes, alarm codes, or the occupancy of the property. If any of these things happen in the public remarks, you could be subject to a Tier 1 violation warning. You actually have 2 ways that you can put photos on your listing. You can go ahead and put the photos on yourself, or you can send the photos to photos@chrisnetmls.com, and we'll go ahead and put the photos in your listing for you. You may enter up to 75 photos for each listing. However, there must be at least 1 photo of the outside of the property. When you send your pictures to photos@chrisnetmls.com, please make sure that you enter the MLS number of the property so that there's no confusion about which property that those pictures belong with. And if you're sending more than 1 photo, please make sure you number them in the order that you want them to appear. One of the things you need to know about the photos, and I'm going to emphasize this, is that you do have 5 days to get photos into your listing to avoid a violation. The problem is a lot of agents are now reaching out to professional photographers to have pictures taken of their home. And we're seeing a growing number of agents getting violations because they're waiting for these photos to come back. And they don't always happen in 5 days. So I would recommend that when you submit your listing, that you always submit it with a picture of the outside of the house. Once your professional photographer is done and you've gone through and you've chosen the pictures and you've put them in order, then go ahead and change your primary photo and add the rest of the photos. Don't wait and get a violation. It's easy to do. We do have a copy of the Data Integrity Standards and MLS rules by going to srar.com and clicking on MLS, and in that area you will see a link for both the MLS rules and your data integrity standards. I highly recommend that if you do nothing else, that you do take the time to read through the data integrity standards. I would encourage you to read the MLS rules. I know that there's a lot there and sometimes it's like reading Greek, but I would recommend trying to read through those rules. Let's go over the violations. Believe it or not, avoiding violations is really easy. And again, this is why I recommend that you do read your data integrity standards. And to that end, we actually do offer an MLS rules class. And it's actually free for members who do not have a violation. Once you have a violation, it's not free. I would recommend taking that class. It's always worth the few minutes it's going to take to actually sit through something and hear it. Because when you hear something, it's going to stick with you. But that's my suggestion. Let's go ahead now and go over very, very briefly some of the basic violations to the 3 tiers of the violations. So, what happens if you get a Tier 1 violation? Well, the first violation, you will get a warning letter. You'll also get a warning letter for the second violation. For the third violation, you're going to have to attend the MLS rules class and pay a $100 fine. The cost of the class is $50. This class must be completed within 60 days. You really don't want to have to get to the point where you've received a third violation for something as silly as not having a primary photo on your listing. The fourth and any subsequent violations are a $300 fine. So that's pretty clear. Let's take a look at Tier 2. Again, with Tier 2, your first violation is a warning letter. The second violation for a Tier 2 violation is also a warning letter. But before I go on, you need to correct the violations in either Tier 1 or Tier 2 with the warning letters. They have got to be corrected. All right? It doesn't mean that it's a just, continue getting violations and you only get a letter. You have to correct these violations. The third violation for a Tier 2 is that you will have to attend a class and you will have to pay a $250 fine. The cost for the class is $50. And again, you must complete this course within a 60-day period. The prices are going up a little bit with each of these violations. The fourth and subsequent violation is a $500 fine. What are some examples of Tier 2 violations? Well, obviously, if you're excluding a listing from the MLS and you have not included the exclude from the multiple listings in your contract and you have not submitted that to the MLS and it's not signed the way it's supposed to be signed, this is a pretty big deal. So you want to make sure that that information is taken care of. Subject property availability. When you enter a listing into the MLS, it has to be available to show. That's part of the deal when you enter something into the MLS. If you have a property that is showing an active status, coming soon, or active under contract, the property must be available to be shown. If it is not available to be shown, then you have other status options that you need to investigate if there is still an active contract. There's no reason for an active status property not to be shown. Anything false or misleading, whether it's advertising or representations of the property, is an example of a Tier 2 violation. Tier 3, wow, it gets tough here. Your first violation is $1,000. The second violation and any others are $2,500. And you'll notice it's not sending a warning letter. It's pretty clear that by the time you get to a Tier 3 violation, it's not good. Let's take a look at some of those violations. Confidentiality of MLS information. That includes unauthorized use of MLS information. A lot of you may have assistants that are helping you. If they are not registered through the association as a user with their own separate password, they are unauthorized. That's part of your Tier 3 violation. And that would also fall under sharing of your password. So what does that mean? Sharing it with someone in your office, sharing it with a client, sharing it with anybody. There are a couple of things you can do to avoid assessments. First of all, please make sure that your association has your correct email address. This is how we get in contact with you for a number of different reasons. It is very important that we do have your correct email address and that you do read any of the emails that come from the association. It's very, very important. You must fix your violations. So on Tier 1 and Tier 2, you get your warning. Please go ahead and fix it. If you have any questions or you would like to dispute the violation, you can go ahead and call MLS, or for the time being, you can send an email to MLS@srar.com, and they'll go ahead and help you out with that.
Welcome to the updated MLS rules presentation for ChrisNet MLS. My name is Michael Rigilio. I am a member of the Board of Directors as well as a member of the MLS Committee, and I'm excited to bring you this information. So let's talk about clear cooperation, sometimes called NAR Policy 8.0. And we'll start with the video.
The Southland Regional Association of Realtors presents Clear Cooperation Policy for the good of the real estate profession and the public. Protecting the public, preserving data integrity, benefiting all who rely on MLS data. How we got here. The internet changed the real estate profession forever. Listing information instantly in the hands of the public. I told you to call our realtor first. Clients need us even when they don't think they do. Maybe I won't put my new listing into the MLS, a practice that has become prevalent. No one knows about this one yet. Clients who do not understand our profession rely on agents to act in their best interest and not their own. Why we need clear cooperation policy. Not submitting into the MLS limits exposure for sellers, and buyers can't see all the inventory, which is harmful to both home sellers and buyers. And the data necessary to consult with clients? Flawed. Pocket listings leave holes in MLS data. MLS data becomes inaccurate and has a devastating impact on the most treasured asset the real estate profession has, our MLS. that reaches beyond the real estate brokerage, lenders, appraisers, even the media, impacts all who depend on MLS data. Clear cooperation policy to the rescue. The MLS was a product built to serve our profession and benefit clients. A service that is time-tested to be of great value. It's the greatest value when we have the best data anywhere. When joining an MLS, we all agreed to cooperate so we could all benefit from the service. So, clear cooperation policy is not new. It's just a reminder of what we already agreed to do. As equal partners and to reaffirm our commitment to the accuracy and preservation of the data. It's time to celebrate and embrace a shift in our profession. As a member of the local, state, and national associations, our profession together is stepping up to protect the integrity of the precious data collected through the agreement to cooperate. Accurate data is in the best interest of the public and a service to any and all industries that rely on the accuracy of this information.
For years, the National Association of Realtors, the local associations, as well as the statewide associations have all had complaints from the public and the real estate community regarding pocket listings, coming soon listings that were not included in the MLS, and listings that were marketed to private networks rather than being shared cooperatively through the MLSs. After all of these years, the National Association of Realtors brought together in November of 2019 a what's called the Clear Cooperation Policy, or Policy 8.0, to address those issues of pocket and hidden listings and listings and agents who were not cooperating within the marketplace. Each MLS was required to update their MLS rules with the new Clear Cooperation Policy by May 1st of 2020. The California Association adopted the NAR rules, and ChrisNet MLS rules were updated on May 1st, 2020 to reflect the Clear Cooperation Policy that's required by NAR and CAR. So you can see that Clear Cooperation Policy is not something generated from ChrisNet MLS. It's something that was brought down from the National and the California Association of Realtors that ChrisNet MLS has incorporated per the requirement of NAR and CAR. So Clear Cooperation Policy changed what is known as the Mandatory Submission Rule, or Rule 7.8. And what it did is it changed the mandatory submission of listings to state that within 1 business day of marketing the property to the public, the listing broker must submit the listing to the MLS for cooperation with other MLS participants. So it changed the mandatory submission to 1 business day of public marketing. ChrisNet MLS violation of Rule 7.8, mandatory submission of listings, is the fine for violation of the Clear Cooperation Policy is 1% of the listing price, not to exceed NAR's current maximum, which is currently $15,000. So violation of the Clear Cooperation Policy and not entering a listing into the MLS within the 1 business day of public marketing would subject the agent and the broker to a fine of 1% of the listing price, not to exceed the NAR maximum. All right, let's talk about some of the important MLS rules to know some of the base rules that are important to know to understand all of the changes through Clear Cooperation and the other MLS rules. First of all, it's important to understand that the rules that we're talking about are for ChrisNet MLS. And other MLSs, which may be around us, around your office or within our marketplace, like CRMLS, the MLS, Conejo, and other MLSs, all have different MLS rules. Every MLS has different MLS rules. The rules that we're talking about today are strictly for ChrisNet MLS listings. The way that you find out, or that you know that a listing is a ChrisNet MLS listing, is in the listing number, or what's known as the ML number. It'll have an SR in front of that listing number. Listings without the SR in front of the listing number are listings that are coming from other MLSs that are following the rules for their MLS. The second part to understand is that the ChrisNet listings, the mandatory submission covers residential 1 to 4 units and residential vacant lots within the service area of ChrisNet MLS. So residential 1 to 4 units and residential vacant lots are required to be entered into ChrisNet MLS under the MLS rules. What that also tells us is that one of the questions that comes up a lot is whether rentals and property management is mandatory to be entered into the MLS rules. And the answer would be no, because it doesn't fall under the residential 1 to 4 units and residential vacant lots. So what is the service area of ChrisNet MLS? ChrisNet put together a map of the service area, which is located on the SRAR website under the MLS tab. And basically all of the areas that are shaded on that map are within the service area of ChrisNet MLS. So any ChrisNet member that takes a listing within the service area, that listing must follow the ChrisNet rules and be entered into ChrisNet MLS. When you click on the shaded areas inside the SRAR website, it will open up a page for you that will give you the areas and even the cities that are covered by each one of those areas. So it's very easy to know what is the service area of ChrisNet MLS. So one of the rules that's important to know that was actually strengthened with the new update to the MLS rules is MLS Rule 9.3, or availability to show or inspect a property. And what that states is that access or showings of a listing within the MLS must be equally available to all participants and subscribers of the MLS and their clients and customers. Listing brokers shall not misrepresent the availability of access to show or inspect a listed property. It would be a violation of this section in the event that showings or tours occur on a property, including by the listing broker or agents, for which a listing broker has selected either an MLS Rules Section 10 status, where no showings are allowed, or where showings are restricted within the MLS showing remarks. So the bottom line is that 9.3 says that if a property shows as being available to show in the MLS, that it is available to show to everyone. That includes the listing broker and their agents and all cooperating brokers, MLS participants, and their clients. If a property shows that it's not available to show in the MLS, that it's not available to show by anybody. And that includes the listing broker cannot show it, the listing agents cannot show it, nor can cooperating brokers or any other person. And, you know, as an example, the seller would not be able to show the property themselves if the MLS states that no showings are available, or if the property is in a status that does not allow showings. Showings must be available to all participants equally, meaning if it's available to everybody. If it's not available, it's not available for anybody to show the property. Another item to understand within the MLS is the listing start date. A lot of the MLS rules refer to the listing start date. So the listing start date is either the date that all necessary signatures of the sellers have been obtained on the listing, or the beginning date of the listing contract, whichever is later. So the example would be that right now we're sending a lot of our documentation for electronic signatures, our listing contracts, our purchase agreements, all of that kind of stuff. Well, with a listing contract, when it comes to the MLS rules, the listing start date is the later of either the date that all sellers sign the listing, or the listing start date, which is up at the top of the listing agreement. And an example of that would be, I'm recording this on a Monday. I send out paperwork to a seller to sign for a listing. The listing date on the contract shows today because the seller expects to be able to sign it today. But they don't get around to actually signing the electronic signature until Friday. So even though my listing contract date on the listing states today, Monday, the listing start date, as far as the MLS is concerned, would be Friday, which is the date that all of the sellers have completed their signatures. So it's important to understand what the listing start date means as we go through the rest of the information here in the presentation. And it talks about public marketing and mandatory submission of listings. The first rule of mandatory submission is that within 1 business day of publicly marketing the property, the listing must be entered into the MLS. If no public marketing has taken place, then you must enter the listing into the MLS within 2 business days of the listing start date. Well, we defined what the listing start date is. Now it's important to define what the business day is. So a business day is basically a calendar day that does not include Saturdays, Sundays, or federal or state holidays. So federal and state holidays, as well as Saturdays and Sundays, do not count as a business day as it pertains to the MLS rules. A new listing can be submitted to ChrisNet to satisfy the mandatory submission rule, either as an excluded from MLS office exclusive listing into coming soon, or entered as an active listing. Entering your listing in any of these 3 ways would satisfy your mandatory submission rule of 1 business day or 2 business days if no marketing. So it says 1 business day, within 1 business day of publicly marketing the property. Well, what is public marketing? And what is the public? So the ChrisNet MLS rules define the public as anyone outside of the listing brokers and the agents licensed within that single brokerage and their clients. So the public is defined as anybody outside of the listing agent, the broker that the brokerage that they work within, and their clients. Public marketing is defined as, by the MLS rules, as public marketing or advertising includes, but is not limited to, conveying or displaying any information about the property or its availability for sale through or on any of the following. So having a sign on the property is considered public marketing. Having it show on websites, Posting information on social media is public marketing. Showing the property on your brokerage or your franchise website. Any kind of digital communication, whether that be by email, text, phone, social media messaging. Promoting the property to networks or groups of agents, either online or in person, where members are outside of your listing brokerage or office. Distributing flyers or postcards or any other written material outside of your office. Displaying it or sharing the property on any kind of app, or conducting an open house. Basically, contacting anyone outside of the listing office in any advertising or any marketing of the property is considered public marketing, including but not limited to electronically, on paper, in person. So marketing or communicating the existence of that property for sale anywhere in any manner to anyone outside of the listing brokerage and their agents is public marketing as defined by the MLS rules. So we referenced open house there for a second, and we'll reference open house again in the future. So anytime we reference open houses in the presentation, it reflects that what is allowed in the absence of an ordinance prohibiting open houses. Or basically, once we get past the COVID restrictions and there are no ordinances prohibiting open houses, then our discussion regarding open houses would apply. So the first status we want to talk about that had some major changes with the clear cooperation rule is exclude from MLS, or what's known as office exclusive listings. The process for excluding a listing from the MLS is pretty much the same as it's always been. You have the seller sign your residential listing agreement, your exclude from MLS form. You have your broker or manager sign the exclude from MLS form. You send the first and last page of the listing agreement along with the exclude from MLS form to the ChrisNet MLS department. You can email it to their email at mls@srar.com. That's the way we've always handled the exclude from MLS at ChrisNet, and that all stays the same. The fourth section now, the new part, comes with entering a listing into ChrisNet as a registered listing. And we'll talk about the registered listing here in a minute. So exclude from MLS forms. There's the ChrisNet MLS has an exclude from MLS form, as well as the California Association of Realtors. And either one of those forms is perfectly fine to use. Whichever form you prefer, the ChrisNet or the CAR form, either one of them can be used to exclude a listing from ChrisNet MLS. The ChrisNet MLS form is located on the Southland Regional website, as well as it's inside of Lone Wolf Transactions, which is what we know as Zip Forms. They changed their name recently. So it is in the Southland Regional Library of Lone Wolf Transactions, or Zip Forms. So you can find the ChrisNet MLS exclude from MLS form in either of those two places. The California Association of Realtors form, SELM, is inside of Lone Wolf Transactions under the California Association of Realtors library. So that form is also within your Zip Forms platform. There's been some questions and some confusion on how to fill out the ChrisNet or the CAR exclude from MLS form. So we want to go ahead and try and clear that up for you here. So item number 3D talks about if there's an MLS that does not have clear cooperation. Since ChrisNet MLS does have clear cooperation as we're required to, then an agent would never use 3D if they're a ChrisNet member. Item 4 allows your time frame to exclude the MLS under the under your exclude from MLS. Item B states that a seller can, as they always have been able to, exclude the listing from the MLS during the entire listing period. Item A states that they can exclude the listing from the MLS and they're going to begin marketing to the public on a specific date. That is when you're going to enter the property into the MLS. As we're going to discuss, no public marketing can take place because on an excluded listing, because if you market to the public, then you have to put it into the MLS. You can no longer exclude it. So the date that you would enter into 4A is the date that you plan on entering it into the MLS and to begin marketing to the public. And that's why they use the begin marketing date or the start marketing date as it's referenced in the MLS. So those two dates, the begin marketing or the start marketing date, is the date that you're going to have it go live in the MLS as either a coming soon or an active listing. Hopefully that helps. So again, you can use either one of the CAR or the CRISNet MLS exclude from MLS forms, but you must use the most current version. Both of the forms were recently updated to include the wording for clear cooperation that states that the seller is instructing the agent not to market the property to the public while the property is excluded from the MLS. So both of those forms were updated to include the instruction for clear cooperation, being that the agent cannot market the property to the public while it's excluded. You must use the updated form because it has that updated language. If you use the old forms, then the MLS department will send that back to you as the agent or the broker, and they will require you to submit resubmit the new form to the MLS department. So the new thing that comes along with the exclude from MLS or office exclusive is a tool called the registered listing tool. And that's brand new in the MLS, in CRISNet MLS. And what it does is allows you as an agent to enter into the MLS your excluded listings, your office exclusive listings, as a way to track and monitor not only the dates, but the information for your excluded listings. So once you submitted your listing, or once you had your listing signed and your exclusion signed, and you submitted that paperwork to the MLS department, the next step would be to enter it into the CRISNet MLS as a registered listing under the registered listing contract. So you would go to Add Edit in CRISNet, just like we always do, and then you would choose Register Listing Contract. That is where you enter your exclude from MLS listings. The input for a exclude from MLS or registered listing is a limited input. You're going to input the basics about the property, the price, the listing contract, the expiration date, the start marketing date, which is the date that's in your 4A on your exclude from MLS, the date that you're putting it into the MLS. You put in, the property address and your basic information. You're going to map the property using the place pin by address or edit the map pin in order to edit that map. And you hit submit listing, and it will now save that listing information for you, and it will allow you to be able to go in to your add edit or under the homepage widgets under my listings. It will show you what your excluded listings, what your registered listings are in the MLS. So you could keep track of your listing date, your expiration date, your start marketing date, which is the date that you need to enter that property into the MLS or submit a new exclude from MLS form. And all of that will be available to you inside of your Add Edit and My Matrix tab inside of Matrix. The other great thing that entering it into the exclude from MLS is it also starts your incomplete listing that will allow you to edit and input all of the additional information during the time that it's excluded from the MLS. You can prepare all of the rest of the ChrisNet information, upload your photos, and have everything ready to go. So when your start marketing date comes along, you can actually go ahead and input that listing straight into Matrix as either a coming soon or an active listing. ChrisNet MLS has training and information online. The training staff at SRAR is always available to you, and they do offer classes and information all the time. So check out the ChrisNet section of the Southland Regional website for more information on registered and how to use the registered system. So let's talk about when you exclude a listing from the MLS, the rules for excluded listings have changed with the new Clear Cooperation policy. First of all, no public marketing is allowed while the property is excluded from the MLS. No sign, no websites, no posting, no emails, no texting, no contacting brokers outside of your office. No public marketing is allowed while the property is excluded from the MLS. You can communicate information about that property within your listing office or your listing firm. So agents can share excluded office exclusive listings within their listing brokers company offices only. So listing companies broker offices includes any branches with the same broker of record and the same broker license number. So an agent can share their listing information with anybody within their office or within their office's branches within the same broker of record with the same broker license number. An office exclusive listing can be marketed to the clients of the listing broker, the listing agents, and their firms as defined by the MLS rules. And a client is defined by the MLS rules as anybody who in the last 12 months prior to the date of the listing has signed an agency relationship with the broker or the agent, has signed a buyer-broker agreement, a listing agreement, a purchase, or a lease agreement. So signing of any of those documents with that listing broker or that agent within the last 12 months, that person would be defined as a client as it pertains to exclude from MLS ability to market that property. In addition to that, anyone that the agent has had more than a casual relationship that can be demonstrated by written documentation showing that the broker or agent has engaged in substantial real estate activity for that party would be considered a client as far as the MLS rules are defined. So it's somebody who isn't just set up on an auto email, who may have signed up on a website or responded to some sort of inquiry in the past, where you're really not having a full discussion about real estate transactions that can be documented in writing showing that you're actually, working with them on a transaction. So if they're just passive and they're just set up on a system or they're receiving random information, then that would not be considered a client. But an example of somebody who would be considered a client under the ChrisNet rules would be like a buyer who you're talking about getting their financing in order, getting their financing set up, getting pre-qualified, that you're sending them possibilities as far as properties, neighborhoods, areas, locations, that you're discussing the process and getting ready to look at properties in the marketplace, that you're showing them properties. You're already showing them properties. They would be considered a client under this definition in the CRISNet rules. For a seller, a client would be somebody that you currently have under a listing agreement, or somebody that you're staging the home, getting it prepared, helping them understand the value of their property and what types of things need to be done in order to come into the market and to put their home available and on the market, where you can show that you're having an actual conversation about doing a real estate transaction. Then those people would be considered a client in regards to the definition by the CRISNet MLS rules. So a property is not visible to any other agent while the property is excluded from the MLS, while it's an office exclusive. It's not available to the other agents in Matrix or in CRISNet, while it's not visible in CRISNet, while it's excluded from the MLS to other agents or to agents outside of the brokerage, that property is not available in CRISNet. You can show the property while the property is excluded from the MLS to people who fall inside of that definition of a client. So a exclude from MLS listing may be marketed to and shown to the clients as defined by the MLS rules of the listing broker and the agent within that brokerage and firm offices that share the same designated broker and license number. So you can market those properties to the clients of that listing brokerage as long as there's that substantial real estate activity happening. Showings by agents outside of the listing brokerage or firm are not allowed while excluded from the MLS. That would be considered public marketing. And that's showings, again, by anybody, by the listing broker, by the seller, by anybody at all. Once the listing information leaves the listing office and their clients, that is considered public marketing. So showings to anyone outside of that listing brokerage firm would not be allowed while it's excluded from the MLS. You can put a lockbox on a property that's excluded from the MLS in order to allow the agents within that listing brokerage firm to show the property, but it's highly recommended that you use a call before showing code in order to make sure that nobody outside of that listing brokerage receives that extra code to open the lockbox, so you don't go into the public marketing realm by allowing someone else to see the property or show the property while it's excluded from the MLS. It's highly recommended under the COVID rules that we're in and the requirements for showing properties that a call before showing code be on any lockbox that's on a property now. It's very easy to do, and all of the rules and all of the tools for entering call before showing code are on that Clear Cooperation page. So it's not mandatory, but it's just a really, really high recommendation that agents use a call before showing code on their lockboxes for an exclude from MLS listing, and possibly consider that for all lockboxes while we're in the COVID restrictions. Conducting an open house, once open houses are allowed again, would not be allowed during an exclude from MLS listing, because that's marketing the property to the public. Conducting a tour with your networking group or agents outside of your office would not be allowed during an office exclusive exclude from MLS listing. Conducting an office tour or an office caravan of your listing would be allowed after COVID restrictions while you have an exclude from MLS listing, because you're only marketing that property to the agents within your listing office and its branches. You would not use open house signs or directional signs for your broker caravan during once those are allowed again, because that would expose the property to the public and require you to enter that property into the MLS. The property is not sent out to third-party websites or any brokerage website or any portal from the MLS while it's excluded from the MLS. And agents cannot publish the property themselves on any website, social media, or display the property anywhere, because that is public marketing and will require you to enter that listing into the MLS within 1 business day. Days on market does not calculate for that listing when it's excluded from the MLS. And in fact, it doesn't include days on market when you finally load that into the MLS. You know, once you're ready to hit your start marketing date, the days on market do not calculate in that date period. There is no time limit for excluding or how long the property can be excluded from the MLS. Remember that, just as we've always had the ability to do, a seller can choose to exclude the property from the MLS for the entire time frame of the listing. We just can no longer market it to the public while it's excluded from the MLS. Selling a property, a listing agent or a listing agent's broker or firm can sell the property to one of their clients as defined by the MLS rules during the time that it's excluded from the MLS. So a property can be sold by the listing agent and the listing agent's brokerage firm within the time that it's excluded from the MLS. Marketing outside of the listing broker or office in any way, shape, or form is prohibited during an exclude from MLS listing. Any marketing or showing of the property or sharing of the information in any way outside of that listing broker's offices would require that the property be entered into the MLS within 1 business day of that marketing or showing of the property. And an important note is that once that act happens, whether or not the seller or the agent intended for the property to be entered into the MLS during that time frame, once that marketing has or that showing has taken place, you've now triggered the clear cooperation requirement, which overrides your exclusion, saying that you must put it into the MLS now. A property must be entered into the MLS within 1 business day as either coming soon or active, and not submitting the property to the MLS within 1 business day of that marketing or showing to the public outside of the listing broker. Broker and the agent would be subject to a violation and a fine of 1% of the listing price up to the NAR maximum. All right, so we've hopefully answered a lot of questions regarding the new exclude from MLS rules. Let's jump into coming soon for ChrisNet. The new coming soon status came into effect on May 1st for ChrisNet MLS. We wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of the ability of a seller to exclude the property from the internet. The seller has the right to choose not to publish the property on the internet. So the process for doing that within ChrisNet is that the seller would sign the seller exclusion from the internet, which is a SCAR form, S-E-L-I. Once the seller has signed that, then you as in your add edit under the Office MLS tab, there's a blue box there. And if you choose no to all of the boxes on this tab under the Office MLS tab, that property will not be syndicated out to the internet. So it would be visible to all of the agents within ChrisNet. They would be able to share it with their clients, but the seller does have the option not to place the property on the internet if they choose not to, and this is the process to do that. It's been available for quite a while, but we just, since we have the opportunity here, we just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of what that process was. The hold status was updated with the changes to the MLS rules. And the definition of hold status was strengthened in the new MLS rules to say that a valid listing contract is in effect. However, because of various reasons such as illness, repairs, guests, etc., the seller has requested there temporarily be no showings, and that the property is not available for showings, consistent with Rule 9.3. What that means is that while the property is in hold status, that no showings are allowed on the property. That includes by the listing broker, the listing agent, the seller showing it themselves, or anybody else. The property is not available for showings. Showing the property during the hold status would be a violation of the MLS rules and subject the agent to a violation and a fine. Mandatory reporting. You must enter the property into hold status within 2 business days of the seller's authorization. It's kind of one of those of course things. Of course, if the seller needs to place it on hold, we're going to do it as soon as we possibly can. Properties are visible to the agents and can be shared with their clients while a property is on hold. So you have a client that you're working with and a property is in the hold status, you can email, share it. It can be put into an auto email. It can show up. You can send that listing to the client in all of the ways possible through ChrisNet. Hold listings are available to be viewed. They're just not available to be shown. So it can't be shown by the listing broker and it can't be showed by the cooperating brokers. It cannot be shown by anybody. But it can be shared to say, here's a property that's on hold. It will be available to show again when it comes available. This might be a property that we would be interested in. During the time that it's on hold, public marketing is allowed. Yard signs, websites, social media, digital marketing, promoting it to brokers in your networks or Facebook groups or outside of your office. All of the public marketing is available during the time that it's on hold because it's a temporary status. We're just not showing it. We want to sell the property. We're just not available to show it right now. Doing open houses in any way would not be allowed during hold status because it specifically says no showings, and that includes showings to agents or brokers. Days on market do not calculate while the property is in hold. And post COVID restrictions, there is a limit for how long a property can be placed on hold. So currently, under the COVID restrictions, ChrisNet will allow a listing to be on hold for whatever time period needs to be on hold. Once the COVID restrictions have changed and the MLS has changed its policy, then a listing can be placed on hold for up to 30 days at a time. It can be extended from that 30 days if the seller needs it to be on hold for longer, but there is no time limit. But once we come out of the COVID restrictions, then it will be a rolling 30 days at a time that you can enter a property into hold. Once the COVID restrictions are lifted and the timeframes or the limits to the timeframes come into play again, there'll be plenty of notice within the ChrisNet MLS and the SRAR communications. A property can be sold while it's in hold, so it cannot be shown, but it can be sold. So an example would be that property is shown on Saturday to a buyer. Buyer's getting all their ducks in a row. They're thinking about it. On Monday, the seller puts the property on hold. The buyer from Saturday wants to submit an offer saying, we really like the house. We'd love to buy it. We understand that they're not going to show it anymore at this point, but we'd like to present an offer. it's perfectly acceptable and within the rules to sell the property during the time that it's on hold. Hold just means no showings. Buyer would be allowed to write an offer, a seller would be allowed to accept the offer, and the property could move to the active under contract or pending status from the hold status, and all of that would fall within what's allowed within the MLS rules. The other thing is that it's commonplace at this point for a buyer to maybe write an offer as subject to interior inspection, to say, hey, I really like this floor plan, I really like this area, I really like what the property shows here. I'd like to go ahead and write an offer subject to my inspection once the seller accepts it. And that's perfectly acceptable during the hold status also. So no showings are allowed, but there are ways for a property to sell within the hold status. There's also been some changes to active under contract. And active under contract changed to an offer has been accepted and the seller requests that the property remain on the market on an on-market status, and they're willing to show the property per 9.3, and they clarified or strengthened the MLS rule by stating that in order to be an active under contract, the seller is actively looking and accepting backup offers. So the new wording for the status of active under contract states that the seller must be actively looking for and accepting backup offers in order for the property to be in active under contract status. If the seller is not requesting backup offers and it's not available for showings per 9.3, then the property must be in the pending status. You can no longer leave a property in active under contract as a way to continue to market the property if the seller is not actively looking for and accepting backup offers. This was strengthened by the new MLS rules. You must report a property as active under contract within 2 business days of the contract acceptance date. The same thing for a pending. Once within 2 business days of the contract acceptance date, the property must be changed to either active under contract or pending status. While the property is active under contract, it's available to all the MLS participants. And again, all of the participants can share that information about that listing with their clients through all of the ChrisNet tools. Showings are allowed under 9.3 while it's in active under contract because the seller is looking for a backup offer. They're actively looking for a backup offer. So showings by the listing broker and cooperating brokers are all available per 9.3 while the property's in active under contract. All your public marketing is allowed during active under contract because the seller's actively looking for a backup offer. So your sign, your websites, your social media, you're promoting it to your networks, to your Facebook groups, and all of that kind of stuff is all allowed because the seller's looking for that backup offer. Open houses and tours and caravans are allowed, promoting and trying to get that backup offer. The MLS sends that property out to the internet portals and third-party sites because the seller is looking for that backup offer. And days on market do calculate while it's in active under contract because the seller is marketing their property for that second backup offer. So days on market does calculate while it's in active under contract. First line here, selling a property, all offers must be submitted to the seller as while in active under contract. That's another one of those of course statements. All offers must be submitted to the seller up until the date of closing. So saying that all offers must be submitted to the seller when the property's in active under contract is pretty much kind of a given. Once the seller is unwilling to look at or accept backup offers, and they're no longer willing to show the property per 9.3, then the property must be changed from active under contract to pending. So if any time that the seller says, I don't want to look at, I don't want to accept, I'm not looking for a backup offer now, this buyer is going forward, we're moving forward, whatever, we already have one good backup offer, we don't need another one. Whatever the situation is, whenever they're not willing to accept a backup offer and show the property per 9.3, you must immediately change that property to pending from active under contract. Now let's talk about, you see a property, you believe that there's a violation of the MLS rules. How do I report that? So first of all reporting of MLS violations is anonymous. So you never have to worry about your information being shared or anybody knowing about who submitted a violation of a listing. If you see a property that is violating the clear cooperation policy, meaning that the property is out and marketed to the public, but it's not in the MLS, then you can either click on the Clear Cooperation Policy page, and there's a button right there, or you can click on Report a Listing Not in the MLS on the homepage of the SRAR website. You can go directly to Report Listing Not in chrisnet.com, and all of those will take you to the form to fill out to report a listing that's in violation, possibly a violation of the clear cooperation, meaning that it's marketed to the public, its information's available about that property, but it's not in the MLS at this time. If you're made aware of a property that may be in violation by an email, you can forward that email to mlsviolations@srar.com, and they will investigate that reported of a listing that may be in violation of the MLS rules. Once you click on either one of those report a violation tabs, it will bring you to a form that you fill out on the website. Starts out with the address, the city, all of that, the listing price, if you saw a sign on the property, the listing agent information, listing office information. Then it has a place where you can actually copy and paste a link. If you saw the property online, you can copy and paste a link into the form here, and that would give them access to see that property online themselves. Or there's an upload button. If you take a screenshot on your computer or your phone or whatever, you can upload that to the violation with your violation form, and that would be included for them to help in their investigation of that possible violation. You can add any additional remarks. This is what I saw, this is what I got, this is where, where the property was, whatever you want to do to help them understand that there may be a violation on this property, you would add into the additional information. Down below that, it has the opportunity for you to enter your name and your email address if you choose to make yourself available to the MLS staff to answer or to clarify any information as they do their investigation. You don't have to put your information in there. If you don't put your information, they will still investigate the possible violation with or without your contact information there. But if you choose to make yourself available, you can put it there, and that information would continue to be anonymous. But it's not required if you choose not to. If you find a violation on a listing that is in the MLS, it's a violation, it's inactive under contract, and then the agent is stating that they're not willing to accept a backup offer, as an example. Any violation of the MLS rules, you would click on the report a violation at the bottom of the MLS full printouts. The full screens in the MLS all have a report of potential violation. You would fill out the information as far as what that possible violation is, and that would be submitted to the MLS anonymously for them to be able to start their investigation to see whether or not a violation of the MLS rules has taken place. That's all the information that we have for you today. Hopefully it was useful and that you found it a good use of your time. If you have any questions about any information, please reach out to the MLS staff. We do thank you for taking the time, and we look forward to working with you in the future.